No, you dare not use blaspheme! He will punish you! The jaws of hell will devour you! All of you!
So, this little nugget of a memory still creeps me out to this day. When I was a kid, my mom and I lived in a somewhat sucky neighborhood in Chicago. Despite the condition of the neighborhood, the apartment complex we lived in, however, was fantastic. Our top floor unit had a fireplace that saved our lives in the winter. For those of you that don't live in or haven't even visited Chicago, the Windy City is particularly icy in colder seasons. It had a nice quality, considering the area, and air conditioning that iced out the front area of the unit in the summer, but the back area where the bedrooms were remained hotter than Satan's armpits. Because of the temperature on hot, or cold in this case, days, my mom and I would camp out in the living room to sleep on those nights. Anyway, despite the rough neighborhood, I remember having a good childhood in the short time we were there. Maybe because my mom always made sure to protect me from the parts of the neighborhood that were exceptionally rough. So on one winter night, our apartment was freezing cold. My mom told me to grab my pillows and a blanket because we were going to have a sleepover in the living room. She popped some popcorn, made hot chocolate, one with no marshmallows for me, and one loaded with them for her. We ate and drank and watched Christmas movies before I passed out, clearly white girl wasted on hot chocolate. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up to go to the bathroom and saw movement in the kitchen. I don't know if it was because I was stupid, tired, or oblivious to what the F was going on, but I called out, "Mommy?" even though she was asleep on the couch next to me. The person who I soon realized was a guy because of his huge stature and lack of hair under the mask he wore, walked over and crouched down to eye level in front of me and whispered, "Shh." I simply shrugged, went to the bathroom, and came back to the living room to go to sleep. And that was that. The guy was no longer there, and the door was left slightly ajar. I chalked it up to one of those lucid dreams and filed it away in my repressed memories. I do, however, remember moving the next day into my grandparents' place for about a month until we found something, but because I was so young, my mom never told me why. Not until I was grown, at least. The topic of the apartment randomly came up in conversation, and I offhandedly told her about the dream I remembered having. This is the terrifying conversation that ensued. Me: "Did I ever tell you about the weird dream I had?" Mom: "No, I don't think so. What dream?" After I told her, she went pale as a ghost. Now, my mother is a dark-skinned black woman, so seeing her go pale scared the hell out of me. Mom says, "That wasn't a dream. That really happened." Now it was my turn to go pale. I felt my stomach fall to my ass and stared at her like, "Speak! Go on!" My mom said I woke up in the middle of the night and this man was standing above me, staring. I remembered immediately demanding, "Where is my child? Where's my child?" I tried to get up, but he growled at me, and then whispered angrily, "Don't move." As I started tearing up, I saw the fear in her eyes, the utter terror of thinking something had happened to her only child. I hated seeing my mom so upset. It's just been us practically all of my life, so to imagine her having to move herself and a young girl out of a neighborhood from sheer terror is hard to say the least. Mom went on. "The man just continued to stare at me. He rushed out of the apartment when he heard you flush the toilet and left everything he was going to steal. The next morning, I packed up our stuff and we went to live with Nana and Papa. Child, I left all the furniture, plates, silverware, the TV, everything. I just got our clothes and got the hell out of Dodge. Because we vacated the lease, it kind of effed up my credit, but I couldn't imagine sleeping in that place another night." We just sat there in silence, freaking out because of my dream, which actually happened to be not a dream. It was all too real. I'd say it was simply a drug addict trying to make off with some stuff. But why walk up to a child and tell her to be quiet instead of just leaving with what you had already got? Why stare at a woman, make her lie still in place, and then leave when the kid comes out of the bathroom? Just why? We were living on the west side of town a couple of years ago in a subdivision. The area was nice, and the house we were living in was decent enough. However, it was one of those few originals built in the area in the 70s, so I'm sure it had its own little bit of history. We rented the place for a little over a year, and had actually been offered to buy the home. We really did enjoy living there, and we were considering settling down. But after the few episodes took place that I'm about to tell you about, we changed our minds. I recall the first incident being a voice. I was coming up from downstairs, and I heard a male voice right next to me say, "Hello." I stopped, caught off guard, and responded, "Hello" back. There was no response, so I just shrugged my shoulders and went about my business. Some time went by before another occurrence took place. My son, whom lived in one of the downstairs bedrooms, often complained that he would hear walking on the floor above him whenever we were gone. Trying not to spook him, I would try to convince him that it was simply the house adjusting and such. He wasn't buying it. The second incident took place one night while my daughter and I were asleep in my room. Up until this night, I would sleep with my bedroom window open, since it was located on the second floor of this two-story house. She and I were facing said window, and I had my arm around her, when suddenly I awoke and opened my eyes to what seemed like someone or something leaning over the edge of the roof looking in at us. When I fully realized what I was seeing, I sort of jumped up, and the thing quickly leaned back onto the roof. Naturally, I was startled by this, and immediately shut the window and drew the blinds. From that night on, I always kept the window shut and locked. I started telling my family of the occurrences, and my husband, being a skeptic, made jokes on the matter. But still, I began to feel as though something wanted our attention, or wanted us to move. The winters here get extremely cold, and I'm a smoker, so I would go out into the garage to have my smoke. The garage was actually a little creepy, to be honest. It wasn't completely finished and showed the signs of the property's age. I didn't particularly like going in there, but I wasn't about to freeze either. I noticed that while I was sitting there, an undeniable feeling of being watched engulfed me, and I could hear what sounded like something walking on the roof above my head. Sometimes I would even hear thumps and thuds. It was when my oldest son came to stay with us, he too would join me in the garage, that I knew I wasn't imagining the noises. He would always just say, "Hurry up, I don't like being in here." The third occurrence happened around Christmas time. It was nothing major, just some strange lights. I was walking into my bedroom, phone in hand, getting ready to make a call, and was looking down at my phone, walking into the room in the dark, when I happened to notice a kind of patch of little green lights sort of hovering in front of a shelf on the other side of the room. My first thought was that somehow it was a reflection from nearby Christmas lights, so I turned around to look behind me to see what was causing it. But there wasn't anything that could cause it, and we didn't own any green lights. When I turned back to look at the weird floating lights, they were still there and moving to the right very slowly. When I realized it wasn't anything logical, it made me jump, and then it disappeared. I went running into the kitchen, kind of spooked. Again, I told my husband what had happened, and once again he made a joke about it. But I know what I saw. I started feeling a bit uneasy by now, and no longer felt at home in this house. A final occurrence that took place and pushed me to vacate the premises was this. My husband works nights, so I sleep alone most nights. He gets home very early in the mornings, but is typically quiet so as not to wake everyone up. But this particular morning, he had come into our bedroom and was digging through the stuff laying on the top of my jewelry armoire. He had been moving the stuff long enough to wake me up, and I laid there, aware that he was in fact making a bunch of noise. Naturally, I became a little agitated with this because he just wouldn't stop, and it was really early. So without opening my eyes, I say to him, "What are you looking for?" He didn't say anything and stopped digging through the stuff for a few moments, and I waited for his response. Still nothing, and he began shuffling through things again. At this point, I became a bit angry, wondering why he was acting like this, so I opened my eyes and started to say, "Hey, did you hear me?" when I noticed he had turned the bedroom light on. I was really upset and caught off guard by the whole thing, and decided I was going to get up and confront him. The digging had stopped, so I laid there waiting for him to shut the light out, as I assumed he had found whatever he was searching for. When the light remained on, I became furious. I could not believe he was being so inconsiderate. It was so unlike him. I sat up in bed and stared out into the hallway, wondering what in the world he was doing. I even heard movement out in the kitchen, which really convinced me that it was, in fact, my husband. I was livid and jumped out of bed to go and ask him what he was doing and why he would wake me up like that. Imagine my surprise when I made my way into the kitchen and living room area, and the house was completely dark. My husband had not yet made it home. For the week to follow, I slept in my bedroom with the door locked, which didn't work out so well for me, because I had to get up each morning to unlock the door for my husband to get into bed. It wasn't too long after that we decided to move. The landlord seemed very confused about our sudden change of heart. This is a story of a disturbing cleanup that I had to take care of as a car detailer. I worked as a car detailer at a dealership for a few years. The boss had a small truck towed in one day and asked myself and another detailer to see if we could clean it out. We had taken care of some bad-smelling and filthy vehicles before, so we figured this was the same kind of deal. We were wrong. Before even opening the truck, we smelled it. Nasty, rotten, thick air surrounded the truck. I asked my coworker if he ever smelled anything like it. He shook his head. I walked over and opened the door, and the smell of something dead rushed out. It was overwhelmingly sickening. I went and talked to the boss about the unbearable smell. He was trying to get some money out of it, and the guy who bought it died not very long after purchasing the truck. So if possible, he wanted to get it back to selling condition. He said he wanted the seats gutted because he bought all new seating, and I still informed him that cleaning it was nearly impossible. The smell was making everyone sick. I pretty much said that I needed some type of breathing apparatus for myself and anyone else brave enough to help me try to clean the vehicle out. So he bought us painting jumpsuits and full face masks. It did help a bit. If we didn't have those items, it would have been impossible. The guy I worked with was a veteran detailer. He had many years of cleaning up and detailing cleaning vehicles. He told me he had never had a case like that truck. We began to take the car apart and bagged the old seats in plastic bags. We shampooed the carpets, washed out the engine, scrubbed and conditioned the vinyl of the dash and interior, and it was looking way better. We attached the new seats and looked for anything else we could clean up to get the lingering smell out. My coworker sat in the driver's seat and contemplated buying the little truck, but we both forgot a major place to clean up. He reached down and turned on the AC full blast, and a bunch of burnt little brown and black things flew out at him. All over his face and chest these things hit him, and the smell was there again. We tried everything we could, but whatever happened in that truck wasn't able to be washed off. We got close, but when it would sit in the sun for any amount of time, the smell would be back. We later found out what happened. Apparently, a guy died in the truck. They didn't find him for a while. By the time they did, he was swollen and split and covered in maggots and flies. I guess since the weather was hot, it sped up the process of decomposition. Those things that flew out of the AC were burnt and cooked maggots. An officer came by and filled us in. My coworker vomited. The smell of death is strong. It's very hard to get rid of if you can at all. No matter how hard we cleaned, I'm sure there would have just been some kind of residue somewhere. Maybe the truck was never to be sold again. Maybe it's just a smell that is not possible to remove. But it was a horrible experience. I'm sure the officer, though, had it much, much worse. Hey guys, thanks for listening as always. Ready to announce the winner of our t-shirt giveaway contest? The winner is Sabrina Castle. Sabrina, please email unclejoshtruescarystories@gmail.com. Let me know which design you would like, and of course, let me know your size. Thanks for playing, everybody. And again, this was a random drawing, so I don't play favorites, I just pick them. We'll have another one coming up soon. Everybody, be well.